Icons of Real Estate, Oregon. Are you ready to learn from the real life experiences and the proven money making secrets of Oregon's top producers? If you're an ambitious real estate agent in Oregon ready to skyrocket your business, then this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Maureen Healy, licensed Oregon realtor. Tune in weekly where every guest will have a story to tell and tips to share to help you increase your own business. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Art or SEO, and your all-inclusive real estate platform, Icons of Real Estate. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Icons of Real Estate podcast, Oregon edition. My name is Maureen Healy, and I am a broker in the Portland, Oregon market. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Andrea Mace. She is with Realty One Group Prestige at the coast, the Oregon coast. So you are located in Cannon Beach, correct?
That is correct, right downtown Cannon Beach. That's where I am right now in my lovely little office here. So yes.
Well, welcome, Andrea. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here today and do this podcast. And I'm sure our listeners have a lot to learn from you.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited.
Sure. So I always like to start with a little bit of history. How long have you been doing this, and what did you do prior to being in real estate?
Sure. I am about to go into my 8th year of real estate. So that's enough time to know that you're going to stick with it, and I've found some success, thank goodness. So before that, I've lived in this area for almost 30 years now. In June, it will be 30 years. So this area is a resort area. And when I was younger, it's very much a service sector economy. So I did all kinds of jobs, a lot of them in restaurants in the service sector. And really looking back on that, a lot of that plays into being a good salesperson and real estate professional rather now. My career right before real estate was in the nonprofit sector. I have a lifelong love of the arts and writing. So I ran the local arts nonprofit for 8 years, the same amount of time I've been in real estate now, primarily as a gallery director, working with artists, promoting shows, doing a lot of marketing. So that also plays well into what I'm doing now.
That is awesome. That sounds like a really fun job in and of itself, working with artists and promoting, gallery shows and
it was kind of a dream come true in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, as I continued to get older, I realized that I wasn't building anything up for myself. It wasn't my own business. It wasn't my own gallery. And it was really a pretty minimally compensated position with a lot of responsibility and the politics that go along with working with a nonprofit board and small town stuff. And so when I really thought about what I could do to change that dynamic, real estate is what I landed on. And I'm so glad that I made that transition, because I realized if I spent 8 years doing this as I'd done my prior job for 8 years, I'd be in a completely different position. And that's really proven to be true.
Sure. Did you know anyone? Did you have family members that were realtors, or did you have any friends that were realtors, or did you just what drew you to that field?
Yeah, not so much. I mean, honestly, my partner, he's very charismatic, and we originally met in a fine dining restaurant as how we had a workplace romance. And I always try to talk him into it because people just loved him. So I was like, why don't you get your license and become a real estate agent? And he wouldn't do it. So finally I was like, well, I'm going to do it then. So that's kind of what propelled me, is like, I'm like, somebody should do this. There's only so many options of things to do at the coast. It's kind of changed now with the pandemic, and everything is changing so quickly, but there used to be kind of limited options down here, and real estate seemed like a good one for sure.
I know that at the Oregon coast, the market is very different than here in Portland, in the, kind of the city center and all of that. But for people who are not from Oregon, can you kind of explain the difference in that the micro markets that you have there, and what benefit you bring from being, a 30-year native of the area?
Yes, it's really different. I know that when we talked before, I was talking about how as a seasoned agent, I would never leave my market where I consider myself an expert and go into Portland and sell or even help someone buy, because I frankly know nothing about that market. And that's how I feel about agents from out of the area coming here and trying to work. There's so many variables. The Oregon coast it's really a resort community, but it's tiny. The whole county of Clatsop County doesn't even have 30,000 people, I
Oh
don't
my
think.
goodness. I
So,
didn't realize that it was that small in
yeah, so
population
it's
size.
really spread out. There's not a lot of population. I also work in Tillamook County to the south of us. And so it's very rural, really still. But you have these tiny little towns. I think Cannon Beach has around 1,600 full-time residents, and Manzanita to the south of us has about 800 or 900 full-time residents.
That's a lot
Um,
smaller than I realized for a
yeah, it's
full-time
really small,
resident.
but there's lots of houses, and we
Mhm.
get, in the summer, if you come here on a summer day, it feels like there's 20,000 people because there are, but
Sure.
they don't live here. So there's just a lot to know about the towns and how they're different and what people will like, and even the microclimates. But one of my niches has become investment properties, and of course, vacation rentals, Airbnb type properties. That's probably 90% of the new client calls I field from buyers has to do with that kind of stuff. And it's such a tricky, changing landscape, even as someone who's constantly following the news and studying up on it, it changes all the time. So that's one of the pitfalls, I think, with out of area agents helping buyers or sellers here is it'd be really easy to give people bad advice or point them in the wrong direction if you don't know what you're looking for.
Sure. I know that, certain areas have completely restricted short-term rentals, or at least the number of them. And like, there's an application process and maybe a waiting period. I had looked into something in Lincoln City a couple of years ago, and they said, oh, well, the short-term rental list is closed for at least a year at this point.
Exactly. Yes. There's Lincoln County passed a voter referendum a couple of years ago that basically is getting rid of vacation rentals in the outlying areas. That may have been challenged by LUBA, but in this area, both Tillamook County and Clatsop County currently have moratoriums on vacation rentals, and every city has different rules. So for people who are from Oregon, people often think that the town of Seaside's a little bit bigger. It obviously has a lot of tourism, so people think it's a natural shoe-in for vacation rentals. And I mean, it has all kinds of regulations there. And it's not even just, what part of town, it's how big is your parking space, how much land.
Really?
There's density issues with how many other vacation rentals are permitted in a block. So it really is,
Wow.
it's pretty thick to get through all of that.
So it's definitely worth a buyer's while to find a local agent who can really understand. Because I imagine, especially if they're from out of state, maybe people from California or other areas are coming in and buying vacation rentals, not knowing the difference in those small areas could be a big detriment. And I can imagine that an agent who is not aware of that could potentially steer somebody to buy a property that they can't ultimately use for the purpose that they want.
Yes, unfortunately, I hear of that at least a couple of times a year. I was recently asked about a referral down in the city of Rockaway Beach, and the woman who bought a condo had bought it to be a vacation rental. She bought it in a condominium complex that doesn't allow for them. So she bought a property that could not be used for the purpose that she bought it for. I've also seen things listed as recently as last summer up in Seaside that were listed obviously in neighborhoods where you can never have a vacation rental, and they were being marketed in the public remarks as a great vacation rental location. So I think that really speaks to why we refer things out as agents. I know that's something I'm working on in 2023 is my referral network. And so, it's hard sometimes to let go of those clients or to let go of that potential paycheck, but I think it's a lot better than getting yourself in trouble or doing harm to your reputation or the reputation to our industry.
It's so true. It's our reputation is everything. And if you're putting yourself out there as a real estate expert, then you better know what the property is able to be used for.
Definitely. Yes. Yes. So that's a lot of what I do. It honestly gets a little exhausting in the summer because I'll get, I mean, sometimes it's daily, my phone will ring a couple of times, and I schedule people for new client consultation calls. And if they really want a vacation rental investment type property, that's a minimum half an hour, more of just, it's more like an hour long conversation, just to kind of give them the lay of the land. And so it's a big investment of time on my side. It's a little tricky, like everything we do, with what you're investing and how that pays out in the end. But it is a huge part of the market down here. So, and then I do, as a longtime resident, I would love to see there be more long-term rentals. So I do try to always work that into the conversation with clients too, just to give them those options. I think everyone is following these things now, that Airbnb is the next way to get rich, and including my 14-year-old son. Just
There's a lot of YouTubes on it, that's for sure.
But you know, long-term rentals are in such demand all over the state, and especially definitely in this area too. So if people are looking for an investment property, that's always a great thing to do as well. So
do you get a lot of repeat investor buyers?
I do. I have, yes, for sure. I work really hard for my clients, and so they do tend to come back. And I just helped a client up in the Seaside market buy his third investment property, and he likes to buy just these properties where I tell him, I'm like, Michael, I could find you a nice place, you know, let me find you something nice. But he really gets these places that need a lot of investment in them, that have multi-family kind of situations, and then fixes them up. And he, you know, he's fielding calls from all over the nation for people who want to rent long-term here. We have a lot of jobs and not a lot of housing. So so yes, definitely.
So it sounds like he has a smart plan. If he has the know-how to fix things up properly and then keep them, you know, I know that's a strategy that a lot of investors will do. And sometimes they call the BRRRR strategy. Have you heard of that?
No, what is that?
It's buy, rehab, rent, refi, repeat.
Oh, yes, yes.
And they'll just kind of leapfrog from one to the next and use kind of recycling the funds. It's actually pretty smart. I've not personally done that. I've done a couple of flips in the past myself, but I haven't done the BRRRR strategy. But there's some people that really love that. And if you know how to recycle the money, and like you put the money in, and then you are able to get most of it back out again on a refi and then go to the next project, you know, they can just keep going and going and going.
Yes, he's definitely a smart gentleman. He's still working, and I think it's both his retirement plan and his legacy for his children when he does, you know, eventually pass. So so it is smart. I think we all wish that someone in our family had bought real estate 20 or 30 years ago.
Definitely.
So, you know, people that are, thumbs up for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you represent both buyers and sellers?
I do. I love my listings, but I work with buyers too. So it's probably about 50-50, I would say. Right now I'm getting a lot of calls from buyers and just a couple inquiries from sellers. But so yes, it just kind of depends on how things are flowing at any particular time.
Yes, I would imagine in a resort market like you are, that the buyer side is probably heavier.
Definitely. Like the town of Cannon Beach, where I am right now, there's literally only like 2 or 3 things on the whole market that are active. And the things that are active and haven't sold, it's because they're most likely way overpriced for what they are, you know, just like anywhere, price always matters. So but it's kind of the same. The inventory is tight in all these little towns for at all price points, basically.
Sure. Well, now that you've been in this job, profession for 8 years, what would you say your superpower is as an agent?
Well, you know, I was thinking about it recently, and I had a realization during the pandemic that because I do have an arts background, and I used to think of myself as kind of an introvert. And I realized during the pandemic, when we were so shut off from the world, that I really like people, and I'm very interested in people's stories. And I do kind of think that's a superpower, is having a sincere love of people and wanting to help them. Coming from the nonprofit world before, it was important to me that I am still serving people in a way that's meaningful, and real estate is a very meaningful part of people's life. It's often one of the most important decisions they make, whether they're buying or selling. So I do think that that is my superpower, and it does contribute to my success also, because it translates into me really wanting to take care of those people and treating them with integrity and making sure that I am truly putting their needs in front of my needs, which, you know, that's our ethical duty as real estate agents. But to take that to the next level and have that be your guiding principle, I think is really important. And it pays off in the end, because those people do end up being very loyal, and you have that repeat business, both from them and then from their friends and family. And so yeah, it's great. It's a great superpower to have.
It is. I think it's really especially important because, you know, when part of our profession is that we want to continue the relationship, and they're not always going to be in a place where they need to do a real estate transaction. And you know, we don't want clients to get the feeling that we only talk to them when we think that they want to buy or sell something. Because
Right.
as you know, we get very, very close to the client during the transaction process. And at the end of it, you come out of it usually with a really nice friendship. And you have this rapport and relationship that is different, I think, than any other business, just because of the intimate nature of, you know, the transactions that we do with them and the time frame. We're with them for months sometimes.
Yes, it can be so intense, and it's nice to be able to keep fostering those relationships, and then hopefully when it does make sense for everyone, have it translate to more business too is always nice as well. So yes.
Well, right now, as we're recording this, we're right at the beginning of March in 2023. So we have 1 month left in the first quarter. Did you have any specific goals for yourself going into 2023, like either a production level that you want to reach or any other type of goal as it relates to your business?
Well, I'm at that 2-year juncture of needing to do all my education again, my continuing education. So that's always a good time to pause. Plus, it's in the Northwest, it's cold and rainy, and it's just a good time to go online and do classes anyway. So just yesterday, I finished the Institute for Luxury Real Estate course designation. And that was a great course. I learned a lot. Sometimes with the online courses, you know, sometimes they're just like,
The
whatever.
quality is not equal across the board.
No, but that was a really great course. And so I learned a lot, and I have a whole, you know, laundry list of things that I'm excited to do. And I just think you always want to be revisiting your marketing and looking at how you do things, looking at how you present yourself. I was pretty happy with my numbers last year. I'd be happy to repeat those or increase on that. But yeah, just do what I do better is always my goal.
Sure. And do you have like a daily routine that you do, or a goal of like, I'm going to make, you know, some people it's like, I'm going to make 20 phone calls a day or whatever it is. Is there any specific thing that you do, or maybe a software that you use, or anything that has really helped you in your business?
Sure. Well, I'm definitely a beach girl on beach time. So I'm not maybe driven in the same way that some of the people in the urban markets are. I'm also a mother and have a balance with my home life and my dogs and my son, and partner. But basically my goal would be every day to start by, I try to get up and not turn the phone on for at least 15 minutes. I do think that personally, I think that's really good advice, is not just to come right into the day like this and right into the email. So for myself, you know, I try to do some morning writing, and then I do have a meditation practice. So I try to meditate daily, and the busier I get, the more important that is for me to go to that meditation practice, because it does help me stay calm and carry on, as they say. So, and then I try to take a walk. I have 2 dogs. I try to get out and take a walk. And then start my day so that I'm well grounded in who I am and why I live at the beach, and so I can be my best self. I don't want to be harried or stressed, or, you know, always feel like I'm one of these Americans where we just don't have enough time. That's not how I that's not how I like to live. So I do try to keep that balance with all of that. I'm not big on all the CRMs and the software and all of that. I know there's just so many endless resources, and I encourage anyone who can get behind those to do that, but it's not something I spend a lot of time on.
Well, I think some people are really tech oriented and they love that. And they always want to have the newest, shiniest thing that's available. And there are many out there to choose from, certainly. And then there's other people that are like, I'm good with a Google spreadsheet, you know?
Yes, so that's my goal. Like right now is I'm exactly my Google spreadsheet is I'm just trying to make sure it's updated, because as we all know, the last couple of years in real estate were pretty harried. So I am just making sure that my database is accurate. And I do try to send out handwritten cards to past clients, at least a couple times a year, and touch bases with people that way. There's an artist down in a neighboring town. She's a photographer, and she's beautiful landscape photography. So I try to do some handwritten cards this time of year when I have some time. But yeah, I don't know if that's helpful or not. That's kind of my,
it's whatever works. Everyone is so individual and we all have our own work styles. And I think that's one of the things that attracts people to real estate is not only the money that you can make, but you do have the flexibility to arrange your day how it works for you, use whatever tools you like, not use things that you don't want. You're not forced into a corporate box of having to do everything a certain way.
right.
And there's many different styles.
Yes. Yes. I was thinking about it, knowing that we're having this interview, and I had a couple thoughts. And one is just real basic. Any time of the day during the workday, weekends or not, I do answer my phone. So
that's important.
That's really
and not
important.
all agents do that.
Yeah, you have to answer your phone, and it's annoying because there's all those spam calls, and usually they're identified, but not always. So, I always answer my phone, that's for sure. But then I was also thinking about it. Things have changed so much post-pandemic with offices. I love my professional space here. I mostly use it for things like this and to meet clients. I don't come in and laboriously sit here every day. Although that is, I guess, one of my goals for this spring is to have a few more office hours at my professional space, not my home office. But coming around, what I'm trying to say is, for new agents, I think it would be really hard not to have a professional space that you're accountable to. I started out in real estate with Remax, and it was very old school kind of brokerage model where we did floor time, and we did quite a bit of floor time. And it really worked for me, maybe more than in some areas, because we are in a resort area. And so there's people walking around, and they're in Disneyland, but it's, Oregon Disneyland. And they would walk through the doors. And when I go through my database and look at my early leads, a lot of those were from sitting in a chair in an office or picking up the phone in that office. But also I had that time, 30 hours a week, where I was forced to come up with a marketing plan, look at my website. I did do all of that groundwork. So it's not like I don't have a website. Mm-hmm. I have all of the basic, LinkedIn, all of those kind of platforms that you would hope that someone who's professional has. So I just wonder how people get past that hurdle of just, how do they get started without that? And I don't have the answer to that because I'm in year 8 now. But
speaking of social media and LinkedIn, do you do social media, and how do you feel about it? It's one of my personal struggles that I'm working on this year.
Yes. So social media is a hard one for me right now. I do have a love of photography. And so when Instagram and Facebook, but especially Instagram, first came on the scene, I was just a natural. I loved it. I've got a good eye. I posted all the time for years. And then, I don't know, somewhere that second year in the pandemic, I just started slogging down with it all. And I've still kind of been there. I've tried the automated posts, and I've started to feel like that's just creating more spam, that it's not interesting. So I stopped. It wasn't about the money. It's just like, I don't want to just put content out there that doesn't matter and you're lucky to get one click on. So that's something I'm constantly revisiting. I do have all the different pages. I don't bother with TikTok, or so by pages, I mean Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, not really a Twitter person. So, it's hard. I think that going forward this spring, being in a resort destination area, I might try to just do more lifestyle stuff. To start taking my phone out of my purse more when I'm at my favorite bakery or coffee shop, kind of highlighting some of the things about the lifestyle of this place and what I like about it, because it is different than a lot of places that you could live. Just
And
with the
just the nature there with having the beach there, and also you still have forest and trees nearby, and I think you could probably get some really gorgeous video or shots just showing. And I think I like that idea, because it's not like we're constantly saying, come buy real estate from me, come buy real estate from me.
Yes.
It's a different, it's the same, it's like a means to an end to get to that point. But if people see you on video and you're showing off your local community, that catches attention in and of itself without having to say, come and use me as your realtor.
No, for sure. I think that whatever you're doing in real estate, it's important to be authentic. Not try to emulate someone else and what you think they are. I think leaning into yourself and your strengths of who you are, that's probably some of the best advice anyone could give a real estate agent, new or not. So that's something I'm telling myself too, is not to be afraid to be authentically myself. And so it's always a balance of how much do you show and share of yourself and how much do you hold back, and, keeping that professional boundary there a little bit. So, I struggle with it a little bit too, but I think it's, it's an interesting tool. I don't think it's the end all be all. I think it's important to have it. I was talking to a colleague about that recently, especially with, I think buyers or sellers, if they research you as an agent, they want to see that you're doing all the stuff, right? So if you have a black circle on realtor.com and, no Instagram, or it just doesn't make you look very relevant. Sure. But I don't know that you need to do like reels from your car 3 times a day. Like I personally don't need to watch that. All day long, but yeah, each to his own though too.
Yes, for sure. And you mentioned boundaries a moment ago, and that reminded me, I wanted to circle back to something about life work balance and having boundaries with clients. As far as how late do you answer the phone? Do you work every day, every weekend? How do you manage that aspect?
Yeah, so there definitely is a real ebb and flow in our market, where it's not always, during the pandemic, it was very on for quite a while because so many people wanted to get out of the cities and where they were to here. But for the most part, it's still a little bit seasonal. There's some down times and up times. So I make myself pretty available when it's, when it's busy. But not 24/7. I think that's something that you learn as you are an agent longer, is it doesn't make you better to be available all the time. It actually, I think, makes your clients respect you less. So I don't have a time that I turn my phone off necessarily, but I kind of stop paying attention to it around 7 would be a fair guess. Again, I have a family. I like to cook, I make dinner, and I want to be in my best frame of mind for my clients. And so, I do try to now schedule new client consultations for people with those new inquiries, and not just always be at the whim of the phone ringing. It's not always possible. If I'm in a transaction, sometimes people are panicky. They need reassurance. They need to talk at times that are not convenient. So you just have to absorb a little bit of that, I think. Sure. But it's important to have boundaries. I think one of the things I learned early on is trying to take the reins from the beginning and being like, okay, like a new client consultation, that's setting me up as a professional, that I have a schedule, I have other things going on. This is when I'm available. You'll have all my attention then. Tools like Calendly are great for that, because
excellent. I love Calendly.
When I have new client inquiries now, I just have my little email that I draft, which if I was smarter, I would just have a template that I usually they're typing it up, and then I put the Calendly thing in there, the link in there, and I just think it's kind of professional armor.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and I do think it's also important. Unfortunately, I don't agree with it, but our culture doesn't respect motherhood necessarily or family as much as it could. And so I don't tell people that it's my son's birthday necessarily. Well, I might for my son's birthday, but I say I have another appointment.
Yes.
My family's my appointment sometimes,
right.
and that's okay. They don't need to know that. So, we have to protect our own best interests while also serving the needs of our clients. But when someone's not your client yet, so, do you want to like answer your phone at 10 o'clock? Like, who has a real estate inquiry at 10 o'clock that can't wait till the next day?
I agree. Yes. And I also feel like there's a saying that says like you teach people how to treat you, right? So if the first interaction that you have with somebody, if they're calling you at a late hour and you pick up the phone and you talk to them for an hour and a half or an hour at 10 o'clock at night, that is setting the stage in their mind for what's to come. So
definitely,
I love the idea that you have an upfront consultation with them and you're like, here's my Calendly, let's book a time, we'll talk it through, and just set those boundaries up front as much as you can. Of course, like you said, if there's a client in a panic or if something's going sideways in a transaction, you might take a call outside of your normal hours. But in a general sense, to try to protect your off time, I think is really important for all of us because their burnout can be real.
Yes. I think we all need to start thinking as real estate professionals and not as real estate agents running around from one opportunity to the next. You wouldn't expect your doctor or your lawyer or your dentist to do anything outside of their office hours. Of
course not.
And so we are in this funny position where sometimes coming from a restaurant background when I was younger, sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm still like a glorified server. And so, don't be that. You be a professional. Not that servers aren't great professionals also, but I think you understand what I'm saying. It's like we need to set the standards in our industry by being professionals, and professionals have boundaries.
Right. You set the tone at the beginning. This is how I work. Here's how you reach me. Establishing the preferred method of communication.
Yes. Yes. I know that's something that we talked about in our initial consultation together. That I was saying, I think with new agents, that's something to really understand, is that your clients are coming from all different walks of life and all different generations, and everyone likes to communicate differently. I actually love the phone now. I used to not like the phone. I used to be kind of a phone phobe, but I'm like, does somebody just call me all this texting and DMing? And but some people want an email. Some people will only respond to text. Some people do want that phone call. So it is important to meet your clients on their terms with how they want to communicate, for sure.
I think that's really important because you might have, a younger client that loves texting. And then on the other side of things, somebody who maybe is a little bit older who doesn't text or prefers not to, and wants to be on the phone or wants the email, or they want to see everything in writing in their email.
Yes.
So I think too, just keeping, finding that out up front and maintaining that through, because like you said, sometimes somebody will text you and then next thing you know, they're sending you a direct message on your social media. And all of this, it could very easily spiral. And then all of a sudden you've got a message thread that's in 5 different places.
Right.
And that's no good for anybody.
No. How do you keep track of that? And then also, how do you know that they're even, I always want to do a good job, and I can't do a good job if I don't know my client is trying to communicate with me. So that sounds like a nightmare to me. For sure.
So we talked a little bit about your goals for this year. On the flip side of that, is there anything in the day-to-day routine that if I could wave a magic wand and eliminate it, take it off your plate, what would that be?
Well, those long conversations about vacation rentals, those could just go away, but that's not going to happen in this market. I have a pretty small business. I do a nice amount of business, but I'm not trying to serve 100 people a year. So my business is pretty manageable, and I kind of conduct it in a way that I like. So I don't think there's anything too onerous that I would get rid of.
Do
That
you
comes
use
fine.
like a TC to help with the paperwork side, or do you do it all yourself?
I don't. I have colleagues to do, and they love it. And I don't know. I'm usually only have a few things going on at a time, and that's a way for me to keep track of where I am personally. It's a way for me to review things again. So if I got to a certain volume, I think you have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of go for the quality, not quantity business model in this market. And so, if I only have 3 transactions, 3 to 5 transactions, I can kind of manage that pretty well.
Sure. I've not done a TC myself either, just because I feel like knowing the paperwork is really important, because there are certain clients that want to sit down with you and look at it side by side. And especially like in
Mhm.
an 11-page purchase agreement that we have in the Aura forms that we use.
Right.
That's a long document. If it's a first time buyer, they want you to be able to point out things to them. If I don't do the paperwork side, I'm not going to know where things are.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure you can find it all, but for me, it's another way for me to know where I'm at with the transaction, because when I do get busier, you want to know that you've looked at that preliminary title report. And
Yes.
so things like that, it makes me make sure I've looked at everything before I put it in its appropriate box. I know that when I was younger, I would get so confused with all of the different versions of everything with DocuSign, and upload the wrong thing and have all this person signed it, but not that person. And that's back when you had to have, I think, the buyer acknowledge the fully acknowledged contract. And there's always like another version. So a piece of advice, name your documents. I hate that with
Yes.
agents, when you get like, say, the scanned in document with all the XYZ 9999, like, go take the time to put a name on your document.
Yes. I always rename them.
Executed, whatever it is. And then it's pretty easy, right? It doesn't, we use SkySlope, like it
Yes.
doesn't take me that long, I guess, is the thing. But I think a transaction coordinator can help you look very professional. I'm just so hands-on with everything. I don't want to say I'm a control freak, but it's hard to let go and just be like, oh, because sometimes what I hear is it takes transaction coordinators a minute to get to things, right? And
Yes, I
so
can.
if I can just do it, I rather just get it done and then know what's going on.
I also feel like it's a little bit more of a personalized client experience if they're, because I'm a single broker. It sounds like you are too, not part of a team. So they deal with me from start to finish.
Yes.
And I know teams work and they do amazing volume and all of that. But for me, I've always felt like I want my client to deal with one person from start to finish and not be sending them off to various different people all the time. Like, oh, this buyer's agent's going to show you the house. Now another day it might be a different buyer's agent showing you another house, and then another person's going to be sending you the paperwork to sign. I just feel like being bounced around to different people can be rough on I guess it's personality dependent, but being able to build rapport and this handhold the whole way through, I feel like is a higher level of service.
It's like the concierge of
Yes.
real estate, right? I want to definitely facilitate as stress-free of a transaction as I can. And I want them to remember me at the end of the day. So when people think about real estate in my market, I want them to think Andrea Mace. So I don't want them to think whoever else helped me, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's some highly successful teams in this area, and it's just a totally different model. This is a pretty high-end market. I mean, I definitely still work with first-time home buyers on occasion and all of that. But when I started out, the town I live in is, I wanted to be a Cannon Beach real estate agent. I want to be a Manzanita real estate agent. There's just a few beach towns that I focus on. And so I want to be known in those towns for a really high quality of service.
All
So,
about the experience,
mhm.
because we know that they're dealing with a lot of emotion, and at the end of it, you want to be that calming force behind the scenes that's helping them through it all. And like you said, you want them to know you at the end. Who
Yes.
are they going to remember?
Yes, I do think that that is one of the most important things we do is to have that stay calm and carry on attitude and leave the drama at the door. We get the drama, and sometimes that's really hard, especially if you do end up with a nice rapport with your clients. It's tempting to be like, well, if you only knew the agent on the other side what she's doing right now, like that's like a fatal mistake. Like, this is, I'm all about having a little bit of a professional armor, a veneer, and having myself be calm and hopefully in charge. We're not really in charge, are we? We have all these things that we're trying to manage that aren't in our control, but trying to be the calm center and all of that is important.
Right. Making it look easy, even when it's not.
Yes, like a ballerina. Yes.
Absolutely. Oh, at the very beginning, we touched a little bit about your morning routine and what you do to get your day going. Can you tell me what other types of hobbies and interests you have outside of your real estate life? I think you mentioned the beach.
Sure. Yes. I definitely love the beach. I grew up on the Puget Sound and moved down here in my early 20s, which is, Puget Sound's gorgeous, but the Oregon coast is definitely some of the most beautiful beach anywhere. We're a family of 3 with 2 small dogs. So we do like to travel. We just went to Portugal this winter. So my son's at an age now where we can go travel, and him and his father surf. So we had a lot of fun with that. And
Portugal sounds amazing. I've never been, but I really would like to go.
I highly encourage anyone from anywhere who loves good food and culture to go. So yeah, that was really special. I've always wanted to go. So travel for sure with my family. I'm a huge gardener, so that's kind of how my creative outlet at the time being, and how I just, kind of meditate in the garden. And so the town of Cannon Beach has beautiful gardens. So I spend a lot of time in my garden. And then, yeah, I'm just kind of a nature girl. We mushroom pick in the fall. So we pick wild chanterelles and things like that. We have like Monday night surf nights with beautiful, amazing state parks just on all sides of us. So we're kind of I don't surf, but we're a little Oregon surf family. So I go to the surf family nights and see my community. So yeah.
That's a fun way to spend some time. That sounds like that would be awesome.
Yeah, it's not too bad, really, for sure.
With your gardening, are you doing vegetables or flowers or both, or what?
I am definitely a flower gardener. Even when I grow vegetables, sometimes I just let them go to flower and then seed. And so I'm all about the flowers for sure. And it's a very temperate climate. So it's been a cold winter here. We've gotten into the 20s more than once, but nothing compared to what most of the states dealt with this winter for sure. So yeah, it's not tropical or subtropical, but it's as close as you can come, I think, and still be in the Northwest.
So can you grow things during the fall and winter, or is it mostly a spring and summer?
Well, you can grow things like, now that I say I don't grow vegetables, but you can grow things like kale will winter over. And in mild winters, things will winter over, things like geraniums and stuff, but it's mostly, we still have winter. It's mostly the rain that gets things here and the wind storms. There is a lot of weather here to take into consideration. There's weather everywhere. So here it's we're a temperate rainforest. That's what we are. So it's a lot of rain. It's very green, very lush. And the winters are pretty darn wet. So
with the vacation rental market that you have there, do you see a lot of people in the winter, or is it mainly a summer seasonal vacation?
It's changed so much since I have been here for a while. It's changed so much since the 90s when I moved to the Oregon coast, because everything's changing, right? And the Northwest has seen so much growth. So this area, it's not just the Portland area. Portland the city of Portland is about an hour and a half from the part of the Oregon coast I live on. But we're also about 4 hours from Seattle, depending on how you drive. Some people say less time. So we're a huge feeder resort market for both Portland and Seattle. And depending on the weather, it's just a lot busier here in the off season than it was 30 years ago. But like right now, for instance, there's a lot of snow in the mountains. So people will go ski instead of go to the beach. And it's been really quiet here right now. But probably starting next week, the spring breaks will start and then things will ramp up. We have what's called the shoulder season. So that's, I think, like September through October. And then in the spring, maybe March through April. And then the high season isn't until July and August.
Okay, because I remember going on a spring break trip to Seaside, I think 2 years ago, in the last week of March with a friend and our kids, and it was freezing cold. We were on the beach in our winter gear with the hoods up and the gloves.
Right.
Kids still had a great time running around playing in the sand and things like that, but it was very cold.
Yeah, no, it's cold, but I don't know. Northwest people are crazy. You'll see people, well, teenagers, right? Kids in their swimsuits trying to get in the ocean. And so it's not California, but don't tell Oregonians that. They'll try to get out there anyway. Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up here, is there any piece of advice or golden nugget that you would share with either a brand new agent or somebody who is looking to maybe double their volume this year or bring in a new niche? Like, what would be your go-to tips for that?
Well, I mean, having just taken that class yesterday, the Institute for Luxury Real Estate, that's actually a really valuable program, I would say. I already had all the high-end sales to just be able to take it like in 4 hours. So I think it's a bigger commitment if you don't have those sales in place already. But there was some really good advice there. But I think in general, it's especially starting out, but I think anytime it starts with your sphere of influence, and you don't want to beat it over people's head that you're in real estate, but you don't want them to forget also. So, circling back to social media, I definitely keep my personal Facebook page separate from my business. I don't even know why we have business Facebook pages, because no one ever sees anything on there. But I don't put a bunch of business stuff on my personal page. However, at least a few times a year, I do put something on there just to remind people like, hey, this is what I do. Maybe it's just a link from the MLS, like this is a really cool house, or not necessarily my listing, or maybe I have a listing that I'm very excited about that I think would be good for our local family. I'll put that on my personal page. So I do think you always want to come back to that. I was told by an area agent when I started that you want people, when they think of real estate, you want them to think of your name first. So I do think that there's some truth in that. And, lean into your authentic brand, whatever that is. I think people, they want an authentic experience. So it's not always about the person with the most experience or the most sales. I think it's, if you can be authentic and work hard for people, they respond to that. I know that one of the listings I had last fall up in Seaside, I helped those clients as first-time homebuyers about 5 years ago buy this just darling little cottage from the 1920s, tiny. And at that time, I was the only person who would return their calls. And I was pretty new in real estate. So it's not like I had the most experience, but I knew to pick up my phone. I followed through. I helped them with the lender. I helped them identify the property, get through the whole process. And then I kept in touch with them over that time. Not even necessarily, I didn't even do you're supposed to touch people 4 times a year, not even anything like that. Maybe once a year, maybe once every couple years, but I definitely would reach out and I would send that card every once in a while, or like I buy wreaths from one of the local schools, and I'll distribute, if 20 wreaths around the holidays to different people, things like that, just to remind people that you are in real estate, that this is what you
Yes.
do, that they're not bothering you if they ask you a question, even if it isn't going to result in any kind of business. I think that's a misperception from people who aren't in the industry, that they're bugging you. I have, at those bonfires on the beach, people always come up to me like, hey, Andrea, what do you think of this or that? And then they'll try to apologize. They're like, oh, I'm sure you don't want to talk about this. You're not at work. I'm like, are you kidding? I eat this stuff up. Like,
Right.
of course I want to talk about it. You want to talk about what you think your house is worth, or your neighbors, or, what's happening with the vacation rental down the street. Like, I want to know all about all of that stuff. So, and I want to be that resource for my friends and my family and my community, so that when they do have a question, they come to me. And I think other people can leverage that. Be the expert for your friends and family first.
Yes.
And that leads to, you just don't know where it will lead. It's so tricky that way, because you just have to put one foot in front of the other and keep the faith alive a little bit. That if you keep putting the work and the time in, it really does build.
It's constantly planting seeds all over the place.
Definitely.
And you don't know when they're going to pop through the soil, but eventually they usually do.
They do, yes, but you can't be shy about it. You have to ask for what you want, and you have to let people know that you want it, and that you're out there, and that, not that you're hungry, but that they're out there and you're ready to work for them.
Absolutely. Well, if there are any agents out there listening to this that would like to reach out and get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
Yes, so my name's Andrea Mace. I'm with Realty One Group Prestige here in Cannon Beach. It's pretty easy. If you do a Google search of Cannon Beach, my name should pop right up. If it doesn't, I have a problem. I don't think I'll try to list my website because it's pretty long, but it's just my name with Realty One Group Prestige on it. So
okay, and it's Mace, M-A-C-E.
Yes, M-A-C-E. Yes, for sure. And then I have all the usual. I have a Andrea.Mace real estate page. I actually have a Cannon Beach real estate page too on Instagram. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find that way. And, I've got the Google profile. I've got it all. Find me on Yelp, all of it. So yeah, I'd love to network with more people out there in our profession this year for sure. I guess that would be another goal of mine this year, is just trying to build those professional connections with people. And when people, especially in my market, people know they want something, but it's not always going to be here necessarily. They want a second home, or they want a lifestyle out of, Seattle or Portland. And so it's good to have people to refer them to down the coast, or in other areas like this, where it's like, well, you might not be able to find that here, but maybe you can find it there. And I have names. So yeah, reach out to me, everybody.
Yes, building a strong agent to agent referral network is, I think, something that people don't do enough of, but it's really valuable.
It is really valuable. That's some of the cards I sent out this year, was just thanking my referral business from the last couple of years, because isn't that nice when you just get that call on a Thursday evening at the park, and when you're hanging out with your kids, and it's like, oh, somebody wants to buy a condo in Rockaway on the oceanfront tomorrow. Okay. But what's the key with that? Answer that phone, right?
Definitely. Rule number one.
Yeah. Answer the phone. So yeah, but it's been so lovely. Thank you so much for reaching out and getting to know you and getting to know everybody out there. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the time to do this, and hope that our listeners got some good insights from you. I think it's really helpful to listen to agents of all different geographic areas and backgrounds, because like I said, everybody has their own way of doing this business.
Definitely. I feel a little more of an organic approach than I think some people, but there's a right approach for everybody. And just like there's a right clientele base for everyone.
Definitely.
We don't all need all the business. We only need the business that makes sense for us. And, that is something I tell clients, and I believe it, that there's the right real estate agent for everyone. So, you always hope you're that person, but it might be someone else.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.